Hey, all you guys out there in YouTube land, it's me. I'm still around, just working, and you know how life gets in the way of things with the hobby. Anyways, I've been looking around, working on a couple Warbirds, Bob Violet models, Ultra Viper, doing a bunch of other stuff for some other guys, just kind of working away, getting some extra hobby funds built up. Still here. The F-14's still around. You can see it's the table that it was sitting on is full of some other stuff, but don't worry, that project's still gonna happen. It's just put on hold for a while to kind of let my mind free up from that and do some other things. But notice a lot of guys in the Warbird forums on RC Universe, a couple guys on RC groups, and some fellows on RC Scale Builder, all been kind of talking about water-based polyurethane method of fiberglassing, this new liquid sheeting stuff. It's kind of like a plastic coating, kind of all kinds of different ways of getting away from the whole fiberglass and epoxy resin or polyester resin way of fiberglassing. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys what I do. I still use regular old fiberglass and epoxy, but I do it slightly different. As you'll see through here, I've got two flaps for a 1/5 scale Focke-Wulf 190. It's just regular 1/64 plywood, or actually 1/32. Couple balsa, spars, wing ribs, all that good stuff. Each flap weighs 33 grams. They're identical for each other. G10 control horn. So we got the parts we'll be fiberglassing. We've got 3/4 ounce fiberglass cloth. Just regular stuff. I get my stuff from Thayer-Craft when I need large quantities. Otherwise, I just get the little 1-yard packages from the hobby shop. And then we've got 100% polyester cloth for pill ply. I just get this stuff from Walmart, local fabric shop, really wherever you can get it. The big thing is it has to be 100% pure polyester. And I'll explain that later on. This will be a two-part video. First part is just a typical fiberglassing. Most of you guys probably know it. The guys who haven't tried the pill ply method, there'll be some new stuff on there. So let's get started. Mix up some resin. I just got a Dixie cup, cut the top of it off, make it smaller, make it a little bit easier to handle. Throw it on the scale. Tear it back off to get rid of the weight of the cup. I've got US Composites 635 thin epoxy resin. Stuff's super cheap, $65 or so a gallon. If you can see inside the bottle, stuff is really thin and it's clear, not like the Pacer's epoxy stuff where it's kind of got that yellowish tint. So I just kind of squeeze in here with their mixing pumps about 10 grams of resin. Just to make my life easier, we'll actually put 15 grams in here. I try and be pretty precise with this. And then the other stuff is 3-to-1 Epoxy Hardener. This gives you about a 20 to 25 minute pot life. The parts hardness is pretty good with this. They've got some stuff that goes faster where it gives you like a 5 to 10 minute pot life. And then they have some other stuff that gives you almost an hour, maybe a little bit more. But I personally don't like that stuff. The slow hardener kind of gives the parts a rubbery feel to it. So the medium's about the best I found. If you vary your temperature of where you're working, you can get this stuff to last a little bit longer or shorter. 80 degrees gives you about a 20 minute pot life I found, and 60 degrees gives you almost an hour. So I just squeeze about 5 grams of resin in here, or hardener I should say. So 15 grams resin, 5 grams of hardener, and we'll just mix it up like normal with a popsicle stick until we get a nice even color. Just to kind of give it a little bit of a yellowish tint. It's a very, very slight yellowish color, nothing like the Pacer stuff where it's really more of a almost a light golden brown. So you can see once that's mixed up, it's a little bit thicker than water, but not quite molasses or mayonnaise. It's nice thin. It's got just a slight yellowish color to it, almost kind of cream color. So then what I do is I just take some 1-inch chip brushes from Harbor Freight. These things are like $2 for 25 or 50, or they were super inexpensive. And they give you they don't quite soak up too much resin, but they let you work the surface pretty quickly. So we'll just brush a little coat of resin here on our part. And you see, kind of as the resin gets brushed on, it kind of gives it a little bit of a discoloration. Kind of makes the part look a little darker in color. No big deal. Alright, now I got that part. Just kind of wait here for a second. We'll take our fiberglass. I'm just going to drape it over the part. And for a spreader, what I do is, don't tell my wife, just go and I find a Tupperware dish that we don't have a top to, or we have a top but we don't have a dish, and I just cut up to whatever size I need. Then just take this and take a nice smooth side and just get rid of all the wrinkles in the part. Just kind of lay the glass down. And as you see, as the glass gets laid down, it kind of takes on a transparent color. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So while that part, I'm going to leave it just like it is for now. Let it soak up a little bit more resin. So we'll wait for that part. We'll do the exact same to the other one. The first flap we did was a little bit, wasn't quite enough resin on there. I like to put a little bit heavier than that, but I did that on purpose just so I can kind of show you the slight differences on how this stuff, on what the fiberglass looks like when you first put it on. This one you can see there's a lot more resin on it. Kind of see little air bubbles in it as well. So we'll just take the other piece of fiberglass and we'll drape it right on top of that flap as well. And I should have rubber gloves on, but I couldn't find any. And I'm impatient, so. But that's why they make scrap towels. And again, we'll just take our little plastic spreader here and get rid of all the wrinkles and the everything in the glass on the part. Typically I try and get the cloth way down as flat as I can, but small parts like this and that are really long but narrow, it's hard to get the glass to kind of keep shape without having the fibers in it actually get a little off kilter, so you just kind of got to play with it a little bit. So where I find the wrinkle that's just a little bit larger, just pull the glass and take the wrinkle out of it. And if this is like an all composite structural part, you want to try and keep those glass fibers as straight as possible, because the more oriented you can keep them, the stronger the part's going to be in particular directions. But since this is just a finishing layer, getting the flap ready for paint, I'm not quite as worried. And if I would have cut it a little bit larger, oversized, it wouldn't have been quite as hard. But you can see this one, there's not quite as many whiter spots on it. It's more of that darker wood transparency color. That just goes to show you that we had more resin on it, so the glass soaked up the resin than the previous one. Another nice thing about these little plastic spreaders is very little sticks to them, so you can kind of just flex them around and clean off whatever resin's on them when you need to reuse it. Alright, so now what I do is I just take the brush and just put a little bit of resin on it, and I just put more resin on the glass of it. And just kind of lightly brush it. You don't want to put too much pressure on it, especially in areas where there's not a lot of resin in the glass, to where it hasn't fully saturated the cloth. You just want to put a little bit more resin on there so you can spread it around. Then what we'll do is we'll take our plastic spreader and we'll just spread that little bit of extra resin around just till the part looks completely wet and it has kind of a glassy water look to it, for no other better terms to explain it. So here you can see the part just like that. It's got a lot of excess resin. You can see a nice long ridge of it right there. Using our spreader, we'll just scrape that excess resin off, put it back in our resin cup. You don't want to scrape all of it off, you just want to get the majority of the excess off. And the reason why is I will show you here in just one second. So here you see the part's still wet and it has that glassy look to it, and you can still see a little bit of excess resin, but there's not big globs of it. So now what you want to do is you want to take your polyester cloth, lay your part down, and just take the cloth and just lay it right down on the part. What you see is polyester cloth is soaking up all that excess resin, just like the fiberglass did. So then take your spreader, just spread the polyester cloth to get the wrinkles and whatever ridges out of it. And here it kind of has that little zippery sound to it. You don't want so much excess resin to where it doesn't have, where it's very clear, just like your other part is with just the fiberglass. Which you can see how the part on the left kind of has a foggy look to it from the polyester cloth being on, and how that's more of a clear part. This polyester cloth, what it's going to do is it's going to soak up all this excess resin that's in the part, so it's going to give you a more uniform surface for finishing. It's going to remove the amine bloom waxy layer that builds up on the surface of epoxy as it dries. But that's pretty much the polyester method, and we'll do the exact same thing for the other one. That part is now done and ready to just finish curing through the day or the night. So I just kind of put that up, set it on a Dixie cup, set upside down, rest it on top. That way the fiberglass can drape over the edges. And we will do the exact same thing to the other one. And since this one had a little bit more resin on it to begin with, I'm not going to quite brush on as much resin that second time. Typically, the more you do it, you can get to the point to where you just put the resin down the first time, lay the cloth over it, and then by the time the cloth soaks up all the excess, you can just lay the polyester down maybe scrape up just a little bit of excess resin on the glass, and then just put your polyester cloth down and leave it. So again, on this flap, you can see it still kind of has that excess resin to it. Not quite as much as the other one. The other one I left a little too much on it, but not too much. It's kind of one of those things where the more you do it, you get a feel for how it is, and you'll figure it out. So we'll take our polyester cloth again, lay it down. And again, we will just take out the ridges and stuff with our spreader. Get rid of all the air bubbles. Make sure it contacts the whole part over the whole area. This peel ply also helps you find areas where the fiberglass cloth up under it has either folds in the fibers. There wasn't quite enough resin, so the glass in that particular area was a little starved, or there might be a little piece of trash or something under the cloth, not letting it stick, not letting it lay completely flat. Like right here, you can see there's a little bit of a bump. That's just a piece of trash that's on the part that the cloth will you'll end up sanding through the piece of cloth there. Not much we can do about it right now, but we'll get to that issue when we get to the painting stage. So that part's now done. We'll just lay it here on the Dixie cup and let those parts dry overnight. This resin, they say, is hard in 2 hours. I found it kind of just like your pot life. It varies a good bit with what the temperature is. I try and keep it about 70 degrees when I'm working with this stuff, and as it's curing, that seems to be about the best temperature I've found. Gives you a good 30 to 40 minute pot life with about 40 grams of resin mixed up. So, but that's Invert's Peel Ply Fiberglassing section part 1. Once it's cured, I'll pop up the video and upload the second one for you guys, and we'll show you what it looks like with that. But just to give you an idea of another way I've got to doing things, here is a completed stabilizer that a fiberglass. It's ready for primer. I did a little bit different on the surface coat. I actually put one on this one. It's 50% epoxy and 50% micro balloons. It sands really easily. This took me about 10 minutes to glass or sand this entire tail section to where the point it's ready for primer. These flaps I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to skip the surface coat, but I'll get into that more when we get to that section. So, hope you guys have a good night. We will see y'all tomorrow.